Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. In June 1999, U.S. President Bill Clinton declared the anniversary of the Stonewall riots to be recognized every June in America as Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. In 2011, President Barack Obama expanded the officially recognized Pride Month to include the whole of the LGBTQIA plus community. It was only in 2015 that same-sex marriage was legalized in every state, and yet the LGBTQI plus community faces discrimination of horrendous proportion every day. Today, I have on a very special guest, a man I deeply respect and cherish, my brother, Seth. Seth came out at the age of 16 and for it experienced many hardships. He lives in San Francisco, where he lives with his partner Jared and his dog Churro. Seth and I are 6 years apart, and as many of you know, two people under the same household can have very different upbringings. Today we're here to talk about that and some of these impacts that can play a role in how we interact with the world. Welcome, Seth.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
I'm honored to finally be on.
Yeah, of course. I felt like it would be helpful for folks to have a lens and an inside perspective of what it's like to grow up in a somewhat conservative household and then to come out and come forth with your true identity. And that must have been really challenging. I know that it was, but I'm more interested in hearing your perspective and your experience because I believe that we all have so much to learn from people in their own experience. So, when did you first realize you were gay?
That's a good question. I think what I first realized when I was gay, probably around maybe like fifth grade, sixth grade. I will say I did have a girlfriend in sixth grade, and we did kiss and stuff. But there was something about it. I felt just didn't. I don't want to say it felt more. Just didn't feel like what I experienced today with men, and it felt more of like just a friend, like a friendship that was happened to two people kiss. But during that time is when I realized, around that sixth grade time, that I didn't really like girls. That my affinity was definitely towards guys. I now notice. I remember I started looking at guys probably around definitely like 7th and 8th grade, and not every guy I looked at was gay, so that was interesting to kind of tackle in terms of just my mindset. But yeah, definitely middle school. Middle school was my my fruition of realizing of who I was and who I wanted to be and what I wanted in life too. And eventually, 8th grade, freshman year. 8th grade and freshman year was when I started coming out to my friends. And then, again, by sophomore year, 16, is when I came out to my family. So,
yeah,
my immediate family.
Right. And so what was that experience like, coming out to your family, who was somewhat conservative?
Yeah, somewhat conservative, definitely. I know both of my parents definitely grew up in a religious household, as many people did who grew up in the time that they grew up in. And it was challenging. There was definitely challenges that I would stem to the root of the roadblocks were religion. Those were the stem of the roadblocks when it came to coming out, and I having parents maybe not expect that their son is gay, and it maybe take them for a left turn instead of the right turn they thought they were going to go on. So religion definitely played a part in some of the, like I said, some of the roadblocks in terms of me going to school because I was in a religious school setting, and also at home where I experienced just I guess not pushback, but just questions. I will say though, my parents have been very supportive from the get go ever since I have come out. Um, and I think that's where those roadblocks come up, is because my parents have always and always will be so supportive of me, and they love me so much, and just how they were raised. I think that's where the challenge was. Is you know, for so long, when you know, for decades and decades and decades, when you've grown up and you've learned to know a certain way, and again, when you're taken for that left turn instead of the right turn, it's jolting. I get it. But, like most roadblocks, people get over roadblocks, and, and, I'm very blessed to be where I am with a family that supports me and my partner and my lifestyle. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of a quick story of me coming out.
Yeah. In the beginning, I know that it wasn't as easy. So, would you be willing to share bits and pieces? I know mom and dad have really done their due diligence to learn what they can and
Oh
to
yeah,
change
oh
and
yeah.
shift the paradigms that they grew up with, right? And I know that
They've
that's
made the
not an
effort.
easy thing. I'm sorry.
They've made the effort.
Right, which is huge in accepting someone from
Oh yeah.
the community, correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Some people. I'm not referring to my parents, but there's other people in the world who have grown up for so long and who have learned a certain way for so long and are dead set in their beliefs, and doesn't matter if even if their own blood um goes against those beliefs, that people will be dead set in their beliefs, and that's unfortunate, but yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So going back to just some of those challenges that you experienced when you were really just coming out, like what did that look like for you? I know
yeah,
that
yeah.
I kind of asked what it was like to come out into a conservative, family and all of
Hmm.
that. And I would like you to address maybe some of
Yeah,
those challenges a little bit more.
totally. Yeah, oh my goodness. I mean, like I said earlier, going to a religious school setting from first grade, or not even first grade, I'm sorry, kindergarten. Kindergarten, I've been going to a Christian school. I had a break between sixth grade and ninth grade. I was in public school, which I learned a lot, and I went through a lot also there. But for the majority of my school life, my adolescent school life, I did go to a Christian school, and a lot of situations came up at that school where you know it, uh, it would leave some people just like, what, just put their mouth wide open. Some of the things that I did experience were, for instance, I went to a Christian school in Pasadena called Maranatha. And, like all private schools and like all schools, you are required to take certain classes every year. And one of the classes that we were required to take was theology. And that's just the study of the Bible, basically. Um, and, my freshman year, cool teacher, it's fine, just basically studying basic parts of the Bible. But by the time I got to my junior year, I had a teacher, um, and he was pretty established. He had been there for decades and decades and decades. So, everything that he had been saying, I'm sure he'd been saying for years and years and years. But when I got into his room, he would spout off and say, oh, gay men die by the time they're 45 because they have over like 100 sex partners and they contract all these diseases, and just this type of like, it wasn't like, it was pretty hateful speech, but the way he toned it was in a very like, kind of with like a bow, like, oh, but we still love them so much. That's how he would always end it. And I'm like, okay. So, having to go to school like that and having to sit there and listen to this man basically just downplay any chance he can at any homosexual, any type of situation where he can go at homosexual, he'll go at, and he'll just, this man just went on like 30-minute tangents completely off of the rubric of what he was supposed to be doing. So, that was just one situation from a teacher. So having to be required to sit in a class like that for your full semester in junior year, that does things to you. But you know what? It didn't do anything negative to me. What it did to me was it made me realize how I felt about religion, to be honest, and how much of how many holes I could poke through his basically his conversation that he was trying to have, and I really like proving people wrong. I've always liked proving people wrong, and I've always liked proving people whatever. If they say I can't do something, I always like saying I can and proving them and showing them that I can do it. So in this case, this man spouting all this hate, grabbing scripture upon scripture, it made me realize, I could grab scripture upon scripture and realize how, contradictory he was. And it just made me realize from a very early age on how I felt about religion, and how ever since then I've really never broken my stance on it. So that's one thing that definitely affected me when it came to schooling. But definitely, I know you asked, there's also some things that happen at home too. I when I came out, I did have to go to. I had a therapist before because she got caught smoking weed at like 13 years old. My parents wanted to figure out why. So for about 3 years, trying to send me to a therapist, just trying to figure why I was doing certain things. So by the time I was 16, I was used to therapy. I was definitely used to going to someone I didn't particularly know and talking about how I felt. But when I came out, my parents decided to shift my therapist. And the therapist, he was not science-based. He was religious-based. He was a religious-based therapist. And he would show me things in an outdated psychology book from like the 1980s. And he would point out, oh, look, homosexuality, it's a mental disorder. And he would basically point out like all of these things on why homosexuality is a mental disorder. And he would gaslight me into basically doubting my sexuality. And, it just was a very unpleasant experience. Basically trying to convert me to be straight, to be honest. So, that was definitely something that left a stain on my mind. And also made me more even apathetic towards religion. And, definitely made me a little bit more closed up too. I after, coming out, and I realized, like I said, my parents grew up in such a religious setting, so they just weren't sure how to handle their son coming out as gay, and this was one of the ways they thought they could have handled it. But years later, they know that this was a mistake, and that's fine. Mistakes are made, and we've talked about it for numerous times, and I've forgiven them, and I don't know if they've forgiven themselves, but I've forgiven them. I've moved past that. I didn't go to some conversion boot camp. I think it was just a religious-based therapist who was really trying to stay in the 90s, 80s.
Well, and I think it's also important to note that it's like, just like mom and dad, he was doing what he thought was right. Like he doesn't
Oh
if he
yeah.
doesn't know better, then he's not going to do
Oh yeah.
better. If
Oh
he
yeah.
doesn't have the tools or the information to think outside the box, it's like what you were saying earlier about you wanting to prove people wrong. I think that it's really interesting that being your older sister,
Mm-hmm.
I have been able to see you from the time you were an infant and on be a curious young mind, and that continued to progress as you were an adolescent, and now even as a man you continue to stay curious, and you are always willing to ask questions to open up more conversation around what people don't know. And I think that's how we all expand and we all grow. And I think that what you've done for mom and dad, being a part of our family and asking them more questions and giving them the provisions to see outside themselves, is just another opportunity for people to just see how diverse nature can be, right? You're just a part of nature.
Oh yeah.
And you're just diversity. That's all.
Totally.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 It's a really good way to put it. We are totally. I like what you said about how we are nature, because we are nature at the end of the day, and in the discussion of pride and me being nature, sexuality, they definitely go hand in hand. So yeah, that's I recognize that kind of theme in the fact that we need to recognize who we are by nature, and we are by nature sexual beings. So yeah, it's interesting that you said that.
It's interesting that you say that, because that was a part of the point that I really wanted to explore today in conversation, and I'm glad it's coming up organically. I think, you know, it's still so taboo to talk about our sexual nature, but we are sexual beings. That's literally how we continue to stay afloat as a species. Without sexuality, we would cease to exist. And so, if nature is multifaceted and as diverse as it is, why isn't sexuality allowed to be that too?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and because it's just the society that we live in. Um, it's just yeah, it's just the society we live in. It's very closed up. I think that especially in California and America, maybe not so much California, but um, we are still slightly religious country by heart, and because of that, even if you don't call yourself religious, there's still um, well, say, you know, a conservative, and by conservative I mean not crazy values, conservative values that people have, and that might mean, hey, shh, we can't talk about that, like, you know,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I think that society's like, shh, we can't talk about that. So, but I kind of don't. I don't really give a fuck attitude. So I'm just like, just whatever. Be honest with yourself. Like I work with my partner, and it's like everyone can blatantly see what my sexuality is at work. We work together, but I work together with my partner. They literally see us in the morning when we go home. So
Mhm.
it is what it is.
Yeah. And living in the San Francisco Bay Area, has that been enlivening for you in your experience as a gay man? Has that helped you step more into your identity
Oh yeah, I mean, in this city, that's I feel very blessed to live here
Mm.
because I live in it's like to be honest, I live in a little bit of a bubble. And I know San Francisco has its issues, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, San Francisco is still a great city and um from places like the Castro, which is a small neighborhood in the valley of San Francisco that harbors a lot of gay men. From that neighborhood to Soma, which is another neighborhood south of Market, which houses a lot of gay establishments that are very legendary to the queer community. You know, or just going to the gay beach that we have. There's just so many, or any gay bar, honestly, in the Bay Area, from Oakland to San Jose. The Bay Area is a great place to feel safe, in my opinion, if you're a gay man. I can't speak for every gay man. I don't want to, but in my experience, I have felt in these spaces that I was just talking about that I can just be who I am. Um, there is no one looking over at me with weird eyes, or I don't feel necessarily unsafe in any of these places, and because of that, you can just let loose, let loose, and just be who you are. And over the past 10 years since I've lived here, that's all I've done is over every year, I just realized how much I don't care about what people think about me and how short life is and how people worry too much about stupid shit that really doesn't matter, especially when you're 6 feet under and there's a big stone over your head. It just like life is so short. Have fun. Just have fun. Just be safe having fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think I like be safe while having fun. And I think having the parameters to feel safe in your body and to feel safe in your experience has been necessary for you to be able to explore those parts of yourself, right? So I know that initially it was a little bit challenging for mom and dad, but what does it mean for you to have the support from your family that you
Oh
are
my.
a gay man? Like, what does that do for you in your confidence, in how you see yourself, how you move through the world, how you engage with the world, essentially?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, I will say they always have been supportive of me. They've literally
Absolutely.
ever, since I came out,
They
I know
love you.
they question things, but you know what? They always, if I wanted to go that way, they would put the oil in my engine to go that way. You know what I mean? For instance, they supported all my decisions on where I wanted to go to. There was no resistance there. Go to San Francisco, go to college there. Go find yourself. There's no resist. But it, I have to rewind just a little bit. But it's kind of funny because I have been with Jared, my partner, for 10 years, and they actually did meet Jared. Oh, probably. I've lived in San Francisco for 11 years, but I've been with him for 10 years, and they met Jared probably maybe like a year and a maybe like 2 years and a half to me living in San Francisco, and they met him as my carpool, who he was the closest person I knew who lived in Metrovia.
Mhm.
So dad or mom would pick me up in Oxnard, and they'd be like, "Oh, hi, Jared, nice to meet you." Thinking that he's just my friend, right? And that I
Mhm.
think that continued on for about I don't know, maybe like a year or two, maybe. Because I was scared. I was scared about coming out to my parents. I mean, coming out to my parents that I had a boyfriend. Um, because from previous experiences, I think I was afraid of how they would react. I know. Don't get me wrong. I know they accepted me for the full gay man that I am, but I wasn't sure or ready for how they'd react to me having a partner. And unfortunately, I got really sick one year. 3-4 years into my relationship with Jared, and I had to go to the hospital. I had a really bad infection. I got IV'd up and everything. I got laid up in the bed for like 3 days at hospital, and of course, my partner's with me, Jared, right by my side through every single second. Morning to night, he slept in the chair next to me. But in that, my dad did not know that I had someone who was, right by my side every second of that moment, watching out for me. And so he came up from LA immediately, which, God bless my dad. He's an amazing man. He came up immediately as soon as he heard I was in the hospital, and and he knew Jared. He knew Jared, but he saw, oh, hey, Jared, yada yada yada, and he still didn't know he's my partner, right? And the next morning, I believe, I can't remember. I think the priest came in to like pray over me or something. I don't remember. I remember the priest coming in. I don't know if it was praying over me. I think he actually was doing something pretty. He was a great guy. He did something for my health. I don't remember what. But he asked who everyone was in the room, and what my relationship to them was. And I was kind of drugged up. I think I was like on morphine or something. And I'm like, oh, this is my dad, and then this is Jared, my boyfriend and partner, and that was,
I didn't know that. I've never heard this story. No.
And so, yeah, Dad's like, oh, okay. But Dad being Dad, okay, just like, okay, and that's just how I wanted anyone to react. Okay, and then, hey, I'm gonna go get something from McDonald's. Do you want something? And then that's when Dad found out that Jared could eat like 5 hamburgers. So yeah, that was. And saying that, to answer your question, long-winded question, that they after that they just realized, they had already known Jared, but they saw how much of a connection I had built up with this individual, and how supportive this individual was for me, and how much this individual loved me. And I think that's honestly, I mean, I can't speak for my parents, but I think if I were a parent, and I were to send my child off, I feel like that's one of the things I would always, at the end of the day, just want for them, no matter what, is for them to be happy, and then to watch over someone, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's when that support really, I mean, like I said, I always kicked in, but that's when I knew for a fact that, things were really different from when I was a teenager, and, they only had one son, and I they're going to do anything they can to just be my life. And I'm very, very, very thankful for that, because not everyone has that. So,
yeah.
Not every gay man has that,
Yeah. Not every person in the LGBTQI plus community has that.
No.
Many people don't.
Lesbians, gay men, trans women,
Yeah. So. Many people within the community do not have that.
No.
And that's why mental health and struggles and trials within the community is, the way it is, unfortunately. Yeah. That's just one of the many facets to the challenges that people within the community face. And it's challenging to think about, to just imagine. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on for this conversation, because for folks, I hope that most of the listeners that I have, are open enough to know that love is love, and people are allowed to express themselves in their identity as makes sense for them. And we can still pay the respects that each individual deserves, because that's why we're here. We're here to love everyone.
Yeah, totally. We're all on the same level. You can be the, manager of a warehouse or the janitor of a warehouse, but at the end of the day, you're all working together, and no one's. I've always thought that everyone's equal at the end of the day. Everyone has a mom, a dad, people who love them, even if it's one person or even if it's someone's dog,
Mm-hmm.
and there's someone out there that's loved by something. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone has meaning and everyone matters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm totally agree.
And sometimes a mom and a mom and a dad and a dad. There's all kinds of,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all
No, I
there's
know.
all kinds of families, and that's what makes this planet so beautiful. Like there's without the diversity, we'd be pretty fucking boring.
No, yeah. That's that's one thing I do love about the place. That I feel like I do live in a very diverse place. That's one thing that I wish more places had that, because it really teaches you how to be more tolerant and just be more accepting of everyone who comes from different paths of life. I have so many different people who live in my apartment building, living in San Francisco, Daly City area. Um, I love it. I love it. I come home and
Mm.
I smell curry and I smell like
Mm.
all like that and this, and just there's so
Mm-hmm.
many foods, and just getting to know your neighbors. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. It would be a very dry and stale place without diversity, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I would love for you to share about just your experience as a gay man working, living in San Francisco. I know even as an adult, you've experienced some trials, if you will, some challenges. And if you would be willing to share some of those, I think it would just be important insight for folks. Again, it's like we're trying to open up that spectrum of whoever might have like some paradigms in their head that we can kind of like crack open and peel back a little bit, like just giving people perspective and a lens into your experience as a gay man, and just sharing some of those experiences, if you don't mind.
Yeah, living in San Francisco, I've lived here for 10 years, and growing up, here, it's been pretty, pretty mild for the most part. You know, there's, I will say, I am pretty, how do I say, I like to stay to what I know here in the city, though.
Mm.
That's for sure. Uh, I definitely like to stay in Soma, like I was previously talking about. I definitely think that's a safe space for people like me. Um, Castro, definitely safe space too. But I would I prefer Soma. Um, I've been to other places where there's clubs and bars, and they're just not my thing. I went to Polk Street one time, and I remember going to Polk Street. It's kind of more near like Upper Market, near the financial district. If you're
Mm.
if you're trying to think about where it is, kind of near Transamerica. Um, but more of a how do I say, more of like a heterosexual based community there. Not so much of uh, gay focused places. So I went I went to a girlfriend's birthday one time at a club. Great club, don't get me wrong. Amazing dance floor. Felt like I was in the 70s. But as I was dancing there, with all my girlfriends and Jared, because Jared had come, these group of guys, they just started staring us down like we shouldn't be there, or just it didn't make me feel like very particularly safe, especially in a bar setting where people are drinking alcohol and people lose inhibitions and people, no one cares. So you know that was definitely an instance where I just didn't feel safe. Just staring us down, like why, like why the fuck are you here? Like, what do you think? That those type of looks, and because of that, that's definitely made me. I would say, kind of corner up into my safe spaces in San Francisco. Like I said,
Mm.
Soma and the Castro. But that's to say the most. I haven't really gone through too much craziness to be here in San Francisco. I like I said a little bit earlier, I feel like I do live in a bit of a bubble. Um, even though I live in California, I know there's places in California, even in LA, where my fellow gay brethren don't feel safe holding hands. Even in the 626, I've heard of stories. I recently heard of a story of these two people I know, and you know, I've known them for quite a while, and I respect them so much. They're an amazing gay couple, and I've always actually slightly looked up to them, to be honest. They have their shit together so much, and I recently found out that they don't hold hands in public sometimes, and it's because of just safety reasons. And I get that. I understand that completely. I've been to Florida. I've been to other places other than San Francisco where I know not to, what not to do, and how to maybe walk a certain way instead of that way. But to hear that even in the 626, there's certain places where people still don't feel like they can hold hands with their partner so long. That makes me realize how blessed I am to live where I do. Like I said, I know San Francisco has its issues. I'm not going to say it's a perfect place to live, but it is a good place to live, especially if you are a gay man. So, yeah, I definitely do feel blessed because, I feel like living here has dwindled the possible experiences that I could have faced, like I did face in high school and even in middle school, where people can just be so cruel.
Yeah. And how did some of those experiences when you were younger shape the trajectory for you to move forward in your, experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll give two experiences for, I guess, both my answers. One in middle school and one in high school. Um, when I was in middle school, had to have been like maybe seventh or eighth grade. I don't quite remember when, but definitely when I started to find myself a little bit more in middle school, and when I started to become a little bit more confident in how my mannerisms and the way I walked, the way I talked, and the way I dressed, and how I talked, and what I said. I think that scared some people who were my peers because they didn't know how to handle someone who was queer like me. I've definitely always been outspoken, and I've definitely always been not necessarily loud, but like I'm not quiet when I'm not the one to roll over. And I think that definitely I scared some people, and I remember I got spit on a few times in middle school, and people could be like, oh, you got spit on for so you. Well, I know for a fact the reason why I got spit on was because I'm gay, and the reason why I know that is because the person who did it, in the beginning, it was a mystery. I would go to my backpack, and there'd be like a loogie on it. But eventually, this person grew the balls enough to spit on my back one time at lunch when he was walking by, and I knew because he had said things previously and given me horrible, dirty looks for my mannerisms. That he had done it because I was gay, and he just didn't like me because I was gay, and I definitely think I harbored a bit of anger. I started to hold on to grudges a little bit more after that. I definitely remember that, and just harbor that weight of anger. And that's unfortunate because that's definitely like a weight on your shoulders and a weight on your chest, a weight on your mind, and a weight on your health. And it's not worth it to have that weight. As I've gotten older, I've definitely learned to take that weight off my shoulders. But for a while, it did affect me and how I lived my life and how I saw things. And another instance, I would say, excuse me, multiple instances, because I did play I played a lot of sports. I played soccer for a long time, as you did. We both are soccer kids. We both played club soccer. Um, both got to the level of premier, even though I was only there for like a second. um, but you were able to get to college soccer, and that in sports, people can be pretty fucking mean. The chitter chatter that happens even when you're warming up with your fellow team. People say crazy shit, and I had to deal with hearing a lot of not necessarily words directed at me, but just like talk on the team of just guys talking about certain things, and be having to hear like faggot a lot, and again, not necessarily directed at me, but just in conversation so much, and just shit like that. And for a while I would kind of I at first, when I growing up, I was like, just let it go. But as I grew older, 17, 18, I really started not to give a shit. And all of these guys on my team, they would like always talk about all these girls they were hooking up, and just be like pretty misogynistic, to be honest, in the way they would talk about girls, these teenage boys. And they would talk their talk about gays and all this shit. But I would, I don't think they expected how I would push back, because that rhetoric and having to be around that really taught me that I needed to push back. I didn't need to, but I wanted to, just to prove that I'm not the one to roll over. So, while they talked about all that stuff, I would talk about, if they talked about hooking up with girls, I would talk about hooking up with guys, They would have to hear that shit, because I have to hear their shit. So, and they never wanted to hear it, but I made them hear it. So, just, shit like that. I'm that type of person. So, in those instances, and, in playing soccer outside of school and in school, having to go to a Christian soccer practice after school and being in that locker room, you can only imagine the things they would be saying too. So, not necessarily as bad as club soccer, but, definitely not, it's locker room talk. So, not my forte, but it taught me. I grew a little bit of anger. I had a little bit of anger on my shoulder, but luckily I was able to wipe that off. But it did teach me to always just basically never be quiet in a situation where you don't have to be. Oh, if you don't want to be in a situation, get out of it. And if you can't get out of it, then deal with it as best as you can. So, yeah.
How did you deal with the anger? Because that had to have been a process, I'm sure, but you had to have addressed it to some degree head on, right? And if
Oh,
you,
yeah.
yeah, so like how did you do that? Because I know that you also had some
Yeah,
health
no, yeah.
issues that came
Well,
up probably because of repressed anger, wouldn't you say?
yeah, well, the way I handled my anger, it was more of just, um, growing up, and more and more and more, I realized in certain instances that my anger was seeping out into my real
Hmm.
life. And it was affecting, anywhere from hanging out with my friends to hanging out with my family. And I'm just like, this is not worth it. I always have a little bit of an anger issue, and I've just, it's really not worth it. And you, it's something that you kind of have to have a crescendo moment on, an epiphany, kind of. But yeah, no, you realize, it's not worth it to harbor all this like weight on your little heart. It's so it's taxing. It's like anxiety, always having to think about people who probably aren't even thinking about you. It's shit like that. Um, Again, it's just a crescendo moment you'll have. It's not gonna happen overnight. Never,
Hmm.
you know. I'm a feisty person, but only in the right situation. So.
I also want to add, like, you have to like love and respect yourself in the process to do that, right? So
Oh yeah.
How did you do that for yourself? I know that you're big on self-care, so how did you incorporate self-care and just, making it so that that kind of aided in your process to address your anger and those hard feelings?
Self-care is just basically treating or listening or how self-care, at least for me, was just doing what I wanted to do, living up here and experiencing everything I want to experience. Going to every gay event that uh, I couldn't have gone to when I was a kid. Just living through my vicarious young self, and that was my um, self-love, and just yeah, that was my way to I guess, get myself to that moment where I can start healing internally. Is just, going out. I know this sounds, a little generic, but just going out and having a good time and being able to be yourself so you can come home instead of having to worry about a bunch of extra shit about how you were having not to be yourself, that you can just come home and honestly just cook on the day, like a normal person. And with constant things like that, you begin to find yourself. So
Mm.
yeah, just living in a place like this that I'm like so blessed to live in, and just being able to be myself whenever I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel very spoiled. So
Mm.
not like I said earlier, not everyone has that. Not
But
not not today.
But you've also made the choice to do that for yourself. Yes, you've had the support, and that's the big piece, right? Like not everyone has the support from their families, from their friends to fully embody what it is they're here to embody on this earth, right? And it sounds like really you saying that you've been able to liberate your inner child by,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, totally. Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know if this is healthy, but I still feel like I'm like 20, 21. Like I still have that very I do have a very young mentality, and I can't speak for all gay men, but I know a lot of gay men could agree with me that, a lot of us, especially in our mid 20s and late 30s, we're living vicariously through our young selves because we had to grow up not being who we wanted to be, and not um, being our true selves, or just expressing ourselves how we in a healthy manner. Because we might have felt like we couldn't have, because it was not a safe space to do so.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm. So, from your own experience, what word of wisdom would you give to someone who's not out yet and who wants to come forth with that to their family and their friends?
Do it. You got to do it. You have to and I know this sounds like generic advice, but I don't think enough people actually take this advice, and it's just to listen to that little voice in the back of your head. Because obviously, I know a lot of people, while they might be scared to come out, there's that little voice that's telling you to come out, right? um that internal voice, that is. There might be a bunch of external voices that are saying, no, don't do it because of X, Y, and Z. Or you might hear some rhetoric and you might be scared of the situational outcome, whatever. But at the end of the day, that inner voice that so many people don't listen to, you need to listen to it, because that's your soul talking. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not necessarily gonna be easy. Sometimes it does get harder, As a gay person, when you come out, it can get harder. So I'm not gonna lie, it can. But you just have to stay true to yourself. Find your community. Find if things don't go in a positive manner. Find a family who will love you.
Mm.
Choose your own family who will love you, because they're out there. I know they are. There's a place for you.
Mm.
You have to find that place, whether no matter where it be, but there is a place for you, and you get to
Mm.
choose that. And if you have to, but listen to that voice, because you don't want any wasted years.
Mm.
That's the worst thing that could happen is wasted years. A lot of older gay people in the community that's an actual term is wasted years. Um, and when you're 65 or 60 or 50 or even 40 or 30, the last thing you want is wasted years because
Mm.
those wasted years are filled with regret and just not good feelings. So no matter what those external voices do say, just do it. Come out.
Mm.
You'll be happy you did, trust me.
Yeah, you get to embody your true self, your
Your
soul,
soul.
right?
Your soul, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
that little voice, that's your soul. Again, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it sounds generic and people hear it all the time, but again, enough people just don't listen to that voice. They
Mm.
go against that voice so much. Even in just the beginning of the day, like for making your bed, literally the simplest thing, like just have a clean start to the, it's the smallest things that people don't listen to that little voice, but it's there for a reason. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does pride mean to you?
pride, pride. It's Pride Month. Oh, Pride means so much to me. That's actually a really good question right now because I feel like I haven't been too prideful this year. I have been working, 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 working this year. I saved up a bunch of money for a trip in April that I went on, so I haven't been to like the bars or anything. I haven't really been to any like festivals or street fairs this year. I've been really trying to watch my pocketbook. But now that that's done, and it's Pride Month, I all I can think about when I think about Pride is just being out there and just being with your community. No matter what you choose that to be, whether you choose, you know, a glitzy glamour bar in West Hollywood or the Castro, or you choose a dingy dive bar in Soma or the Eagle, New York, you know, just go out there and be with the people who are like you because that it's truly magical when there's so many of us in one spot too. Um, but that's pride is just being with the community and doing whatever you want in a safe and healthy manner, of course, and respectable manner in the right space. So yeah, um, yeah. I
Hmm.
definitely think that I'm excited for this month to happen because I'm actually I'm actually gonna I have a few plans this weekend finally.
Hmm.
So yeah, definitely gonna go out this weekend at the bar,
Good.
hit up some friends, and just feel the community. That's what pride means to me. It's just feeling the community, and I definitely think you need to recognize how while not all of us have it good, a lot of us do have it very good, and we should be thankful for where we're at today and how even though there's people that are trying to bring us down from Florida to Texas, there's still people who are right by our side who are trying to bring us up, allies and ourselves too. We have a voice in everywhere now in the Senate, and I don't really want to get political, but just where our voice is needed, it matters. And I definitely think being prideful is recognizing where we're at today.
Hmm.
When it's not where we're at 70 years ago. Don't get me wrong. I know there's some issues, especially when it comes to this drag queen thing. And that's actually one thing I plan on doing this weekend is going seeing a bunch of drag queens. So
Good for you.
yeah, pride is just having
Yeah.
a good time, and being prideful in who you are and recognizing that. So I know that's a long-winded
Hmm.
answer, but
No, I love
it
it.
should
And
be.
I
It should
think
be.
I think it's important also that you said to be with your community
Oh,
because that's vital, right? To be able to, and I think for folks all ages and stages, wherever they're at on their journey, whenever they've come out, if they haven't come out, for them to be able to go and express themselves in that way with people who maybe don't look like them, but who have experienced some of those same experiences, right? Like, and maybe none of those experiences have been the same, but even still, it's just to be able to celebrate the diversity amongst the community is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and so much fun.
So much
It's,
fun.
hmm And
Yeah.
for our Pride celebration is, I think, June 27th. So June
Yeah,
20th.
in honor of Stonewall, right? Like, and I think it's so important to like honor those that have come before. And I know you're so good at doing that. I know that, it's funny. When I was when I was flying to Japan, we got to fly out of SFO, and it was so beautiful because they
Oh,
have
yeah, the
all of those beautiful photos of Harvey Milk. And
yeah.
it's such a beautiful testament to the city. And I know that Stonewall is apart from Harvey, but even still, it's the founding individuals who really invigorated and got the movement running, right? I know that there were even those that came before, but really, really just people that were on the forefront of helping the community be seen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. His impact was huge, you know. Yeah. We had riots here too when he died. We made sure that that shit wasn't gonna just be turned over like another, yeah, pancake. Like, yeah, we did not let that shit go down quietly. So yeah, yeah. He was an amazing guy. So
Hmm. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for this conversation. Thank you for your honesty, for your vulnerability, and for just sharing some of the things that you've gone through in your own life to shed light on the experience and what it's like to be a gay man in this day and age.
totally, totally.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me. I had a good time.
Yeah, thank you so much again for sharing and for just being who you are and for being a model to me and what it means to just fully wear your authenticity. So, thank you. I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey there, it's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.